Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. And a great show for you today with Pierre Carter from South Africa. I've been interested in following some of Pierre's exploits for a very long time. And after hearing the great show with Andy and Richard and the boys from South Africa with their adventures and misadventures in Pakistan, a few shows back, I thought I have got to reach out to Pierre, and he was keen. So we just had a talk. He's over in Johannesburg and planning some cool stuff. You may have seen the XC Mag article about his recent ascent and descent by wing of Everest. He's been working on the 7 summits for quite some time. He's bagged them all. Hasn't been able to fly off all of them. You'll hear about that because of in Denali, because it's in the national park. But he's got them all pretty much wrapped up except Vincent down in Antarctica. So we talk about that and that timeline and how it all weaves in and out of his 3 Red Bull X-Alps campaigns in 2009, 11, and 13. Fascinating individual, great storyteller, some wild adventures and yeah, misadventures, especially in that first Red Bull X-Alps that he did in 2009, and a lot of fun. Please enjoy this great talk with the legendary Pierre Carter. Pierre, I've been meaning to do this with you for a decade, man. I'm glad we were finally able to put this together. It's nice to see your smiling face there in Johannesburg, and it was nice catching up with you before we hit the record button. But welcome to the Mayhem, and how are you, bud?
Yeah, very well, Gavin. And I just want to say thank you for putting this show together for everybody in the paragliding community. It really is, your platform's amazing. So it really gets everyone connected. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Well, I appreciate that. We were just chatting before we hit record there on what should we cover with you? You've been flying for 35 years. There's a lot here. My heart, of course, is with the Red Bull X-Alps,
Yeah.
and you competed in it in 2009, 11, and 13. So right before I got into it, and so we've got some storytelling to do there. But maybe and then we've got your 7 summit stuff, which I think is what people are really going to want to hear about. You've got them all done except Vincent, that's an exciting one to leave to the end.
It is. Well, it's the most expensive
maybe I can join you on that.
Left it to the end.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I guess getting down there and the whole thing and the ship and the whole deal. Yeah. I sailed around Cape Horn a few years back in the winter, but we never made it across the passage. But yeah, that'll be very interesting. So we'll get into all that. But maybe before we get, we take a walk and fly down memory lane with the X-Alps, catch everybody up on your history a bit. Where did it start? How did it, what was the catalyst? Yeah. How did you get to where you are today? Because your life has been kind of defined by flying to an extent, right?
Yeah. So I started with my climbing, which was, I sort of started when I was in school in the senior years, and got into that in quite a big way in South Africa. So that's rock climbing, not mountaineering, so to speak. And I eventually have always had an inkling to fly something. I think it was hang gliders and can't think of the one with the motor on the back. What's the hang glider? With the motor?
Trike.
Trike, thank you. With a trike. I was thinking about that when I was at school, trying to get into that sort of thing. And then South Africa had military service back then. I went and did my military service. I came out of that when I was 20 years old, and went off on a climbing expedition with Chris Lomax and David Davies, and Eddie Kay was in the background as well. He was climbing with his then American girlfriend. And David Davies was a big hang glider pilot in South Africa, the Davies brother, Hilton and David. And he said, no, there's this new thing, paragliding. You must really try it. Andy's got this little rig here. So Andy had sort of started, I think, in South Africa in 87, I guess. But he was a big skydiver and base jumper. So he was jumping off hills with his skydiving rig. And I then David then showed me some photographs where he had. I went and climbed a couple of mountains with him, then went off to Machu Picchu, etc., and then met up with David again, and he showed me some pictures of Andy sort of plopping off one or two peaks with this sort of rag of his. And I thought, that's the way to go, to climb these mountains, because it takes you 6 days to climb them and 4 days to get down, and so it goes. I thought that's definitely what I'm going to try when I get back to Joburg. And so that's where it all began in '88 for me. And I found someone who actually had a hang gliding school in Joburg, and they had just bought a paraglider, and they were trying to figure it out themselves as well. And we sort of, she showed me the ropes of whatnot, at a school, sort of in a hang gliding way there. And I must have been one of her first students, I guess. And never looked back since then. And then the bug bit, where literally my climbing took a dive, and paragliding came to the
took
forefront.
over.
Took over. But I've always been climbing, and I have linked it up with a bit of my mountaineering, hence the 7 summits. It's been a good ride, but it's always been something. As a career, I never really had a proper career, like most people get. I've always worked to go and fly or go and climb something. So,
How do you what kind of work does that typically entail?
I'm a builder, so I've always been a builder. So I did a building degree, and I tried the big corporate companies. I lasted maybe 4 years, and that was it. And then I just and I've pretty much been by myself, jumping from small little companies to small little companies, and then sort of building up enough cash to go and do a mountain, and then I decided, with the 7 summits, and I'd save up enough cash over 2 years, and then go and do one of the summits. And so it's been going on since 2005, my 7 summit sort of bid. Yeah.
Really? So that started before your X-Alps campaigns. It's quite cool to hear that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to start in 19. I came with the idea in 1998, 99, pretty much the same time as Zeb and Claire did, actually. And they got sponsorship and just did it in 2 years or 2.5 years. And I try to get sponsorship, but South Africa is a bit of they've got other problems to worry about. So
right.
I've just been hammering away at it. And I just thought, let me just go for it and save up the money and just go and tick it off as I go along and enjoy the ride. So
it's very cool to hear that, you and Andy came out of the climbing scene back in the day and used paragliders as they were kind of first designed, which was a descent tool for mountaineers. And then now, 35 years later, you guys go and do an expedition together in Pakistan, and you're using them as an ascent tool. We just did this show with Jake Holland, and he's been doing these crazy trips with Fabi Buell and Will Sim and these, really famous climbers who have gotten into paragliding and gotten really good because they just want to avoid the treks. They want to avoid the 5-10 days getting in. And it's very cool to see it kind of come full circle with you. I mean, and it's also very cool to see you guys, you're still friends, you're still doing it, still chasing it.
Yeah. We're nearing 60 now, both of myself and Andy. So another 1.5 years, we'll both be 60. I think we're the same age. So, but and I met Jake, obviously in Pakistan when we were there this last season. And I met him, he's filming for Horatio and Tom. And I was helping him out with all the winching and stuff and sort of the background stuff. But it was great. Great guys. And Jake told me about some of those trips of his. It's quite amazing, what he's been doing.
Pretty wild. The footage is just unbelievable. It's very, very inspiring, very tempting. You've been off Kili 6 times, you were saying before we started here.
So part of
that's impressive.
To get out, when I started the 7 summits, I thought, okay, I'm just going to be a cowboy and go and do it. And then I saw people who had done it in the past, got slapped on the wrist, got put into sort of a jail for a couple of days, and then had to pay a big fine to get out. And I thought, no, actually, I don't feel like doing that. So I don't want to go spend a couple of days in some dodgy jail in Africa or wherever it might be. So I thought, let me try and do it all legally. And to get permission to fly off some of these 7 summits, did like Denali, they actually won't let you. So I've tried Denali. It's actually, I've climbed it, but I haven't flown off it. Even though I say I've flown all the 7 summits, Denali still eludes me because they won't let us climb it. Yeah. When I went there in 2000 and when was it, 15, I think, or 16, they must have Googled me, because as soon as I got there to go and get my permit, they said, come into the boardroom, sign this big lawyer's letter. You're not going to fly. Give us your glider and then we'll give you your permit. So I had to hand all the kit over, and they took it all and said, come get it when you come down the mountain. So it was.
That is really interesting to me. We had a different experience with Denali. So when we did the Alaska Range Traverse, we really wanted to start in Lake Clark National Park because it's truly the end of the Alaskan range. I mean, you only have to be 20 kilometers into it, and it's the start of the Alaskan range. And they were just flat out, no way, not going to happen. But
they'd let you land in the park. See, they'd let me take off somewhere else and land in the park is no problem. But taking off in the park,
right?
They said not a chance. So
you're right. Yeah. That's the same we got. I mean, I brought some films in to show them, and we went, I went up months before because I knew that was going to be the make or break thing. So I went up months before and went to the ranger station there for the Denali. It's on the south side, but we went and sat down with them, and they were just fascinated. And their take was that, hey, we can't treat you any differently than we do a helicopter or a plane. You can take, because we explained it. We could take off from here. It was Heart Mountain. Yeah. It's right outside the park. And on a good day, we'll fly the whole thing. I had no idea actually if we could actually do that because I hadn't flown up there. But it seemed reasonable. But it was, it was over 100K. And I said, but there's a good chance we're not going to make it. So what happens then? And they said, well, you just have to declare an emergency landing. We want to see your trackers. We want to be able to follow you guys. And you have to declare in the air an emergency landing, just like you would if you were flying a plane, and then land. But then you can't relaunch. So you're right. Okay. Yeah. Shoot.
It was very tempting, and it still is tempting to. I guess you could always give them an old glider to confiscate and take your little light one and bomb off. But there's only one road out, which is a bit of a problem. I'm sure they would stop you before you made it out. If you had someone waiting at the bottom with a car and you jumped in the car and you bolted, but it's a long road out. So, yeah.
It's a long glide. Yeah.
It's a long glide.
Long glide. Yeah. You'd be very visible for a while.
Yes, yeah.
You'd have to do it in a very cloudy day or something. Just disappear into the clouds.
Because, we were up there and it was a balmy day where we were in our short sleeve shirts, I think. We didn't even have a down jacket on.
Oh. That's amazing because Denali is always the coldest,
Yeah, 15 Ks from the nice sort of north. I think it was northerly wind. It was beautiful. It was perfect launchable day. But anyway, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right? So Zeb and Claire were the last to fly off. And
they did fly off it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. And ever since
they got caught, or what happened?
No, I think they just said. The rangers just said, that's it, no more. And that's when the big rule came in, no paragliding in the park. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think they got
it'd be nice to, Will Gadd's been pretty successful at lobbying the Canadian government to, then they're slowly changing these rules in the Canadian parks. I think he's opened up 2 or 3 now. Okay. And, it's just this ancient rule in the 60s with the Wilderness Act and, and how we're classified as aircraft. And it'd be really quite nice to have that rule change. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but
that is weird. So, as I was saying, I decided to do the legal route. So I've gone to each mountain I've approached, and only 2 really difficult mountains was Kilimanjaro to get permission to fly off that, and Everest. Those 2 didn't allow it, and we lobbied. So my friend Linda, who does the paragliding Kilimanjaro tours, and I help out in that. She lobbied for, it must have been about 8 years of just knocking on the doors and just going to see the government and the various ministers. And eventually they said, okay, we'll allow you. And that was 2011 that they allowed us. So we went and did Kili then. And 3 of us flew off. And,
How long is that glide? How long are you in the air?
If you don't thermal, once you get below cloud base, you can then obviously thermal back up to cloud base. But if it's just a straight glide, down back to the hotel is about anything from 50 minutes to an hour 10. Just gliding.
Wow.
You just go and
that's
go.
amazing.
And go.
Wow.
But it is.
What's the elevate? What's the start and end?
So you roughly got 5,500 meters of. I think it's the highest top to bottom sort of filthy, if you want to call it. So it's
Yeah.
it is a.
5,000.
I mean, it is beautiful. It is. The last person I took off, she was 60, 65, I think, just over 65, and her husband. Her brother-in-law flew off single, and no, it was her husband. Yeah, he flew off by himself, and I took her. She must have been in her mid-60s, and literally after 5 minutes, she fell asleep. I mean, she was just so tired, I think, and altitude got to her, and she fell the whole ride down. I mean, her husband was a bit pissed off with her, I'm sure. And I had to wake her up before we landed.
Hey, wake up! You should probably be watching this. That's really funny. Denali's got to be close to that, isn't it? What's Denali? 23?
It must be very close to that,
because I mean, if you went off that, I mean, that's almost 6. If you went off that, you'd be landing at basically sea level.
Yeah. Because
that
could you land at Moshi there? And Moshi, I think, is around about 500 meters above sea level. So it's
yeah.
Huh?
So, I hope you get to do it. Well, hey, maybe then I wasn't planning this, but maybe an interesting way to do this is by timeline. Let's go. You started your first in 2005. Let's just do through the 7 summits, but then interrupted, of course, by your X-Alps campaigns. Let's do that. So 2005 was the first one.
So that was the first one, Elbrus, and that I just did by myself, and I actually got some mates who wanted to go and climb it. I just said, well, I'm going to come with you guys, and I'll fly off it. And it was pretty straightforward, nice, easy climb, nothing. But Russia, I really loved Russia. It was a fantastic country.
Yeah.
The people are just they're very much like South Africans, actually. I think the country's been through a big turmoil in terms of their change, and so we sort of, I found I gelled with them very, very, very well. It was, we had great parties. It was really fantastic. Even though we couldn't speak a word of each other's languages, it was still good.
Right. Bound by vodka.
Yes, yeah. That's they definitely can drink. That's one thing. Wow. But,
it seems like places that are dark a lot of the year, booze tends to help.
I'd agree with that. But the Russians, they do, Anyway, I really enjoyed them. So I don't know why they're fighting this bloody war. But anyway, that's Putin's problem. But lovely people. And then that was 2005. And in 2007, I went and did Akon. Actually, 2006, I went and did. No, wait, let me start this again. No, I started 2003. I went and did Ak with my wife, and I wanted to fly off, and we climbed it, but we got up very late, and she wasn't going to paraglide. She didn't want to go tandem with me, and I had my own little rig, my little Montana that I was a gradient pilot in those days. So I had a Montana that Andre had made for me, and we're up there at I think 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. The sun goes down around about 9:30, and I didn't want to let my wife walk down by herself. So actually, in her story, her version is she would have put the pickaxe in my head if I had, but I had left her there. So anyway, I walked back down with her, and we got back to camp sort of at 11. We did the Polish Direct, which is a bit of an ice climb at the top, so we didn't do the normal route, and we went down the normal route. So that was the first time I went to try and fly off it, and then 2005 I did Elbrus, and then 2007 I went back to do Aconcagua with a friend of mine, Guy Pittman, and he had just learned how to fly. I think it was around about his 20th flight, and so he was just saying, Pierre, I'm in your hands. You just tell me when to run, when to not do, what to do. I said, okay, that's cool. It should be fine if the weather. I found generally it's the weather. If you want to climb a mountain in good weather, and if you get on top and it's all good, the weather generally is going to stay fine. And it's been like that pretty much with all my flights off the big mountains. You generally summit in good weather, and you're going to have good flying weather then as well. Unless you're pushing the boat out and going up in terrible weather. But so we we got up top, and there was zero wind, and we got up there quite early. We did the normal route, and I think we were up top at like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the day. And but there was no wind on top. There was absolutely no wind, and I must have tried 30 times to run off, and you just can't run fast enough. You need skis or something, to be able to go off.
Wow, because the air's so thin.
The air's so thin.
Shit.
And it's big on top there. It's like the size of a rugby field, So you've got plenty of running space, but we just couldn't get it.
It's not technical. This is a class 0 launch. It's not hard.
Yeah, well, you're running off a cliff, but you're just running on a big. It's just flat, and you just run off the edge. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Guy tried about probably 15 times, and he said that's it. I'm buggered. We didn't have oxygen or anything like that. We just acclimatized. And he said he's walking down. So I said, cool, I'm going to carry on until sunset, and then I'm going to walk down if I don't get off. And I must have tried 40 times or so. And eventually,
oh my God!
Eventually, the sun. I mean, you're so buggered after running 20 meters that you just you have to rest for like half an hour, then you try again and rest. And at sunset, the sort of must be the west face. Is it the west face? Yeah. Was sort of heating up, and just a little puff of air was coming up the cliff face. And I just put a streamer out on the cliff, and as I saw it moving, I just ran, and that little puff of air just caught the glider nicely. So as I got to the edge, she felt nice and solid, and not like I was going to have to jump off and deal with the rag. So she didn't lift me off. I saw it was quite a dive. Yeah, she really did dive, right into it. So that's how. And then I went and landed back at our base, at least a high camp at 6,000 meters. And beat Guy down. Actually, he is still walking down. So,
you had enough light you could see?
Yes, yeah. So I sort of took off probably at, I guess it must have been about 7:30, and the sun goes down there at about 9. So yeah.
Oh, okay. You had enough time. Well, what time of year was that?
I flew around. It was nice. I flew around, and I stayed up for about 20 minutes or so. Yeah. Didn't get
What time of year was that?
That was December. I remember we had Christmas up top there. So it must have been 28th. It was just after December.
God, there wasn't more. Why wasn't there more? I would think it'd be rowdy and thermally up there in the middle of the day.
It was strange. It was very, very nice and calm. The next day, though, we then radioed down to because we were doing everything by ourselves. We weren't doing it through a company. And we radioed down and said, how much for you guys to come and collect all our gear? And they said whatever it was, $1,000 or something. So we said, cool, we're going to leave it over here. Mark, we told them we were going to leave it, and they came and collected the gear, and Guy and I then flew off from 6,000 meters. And I remember this is Guy's like 20th or 25th flight. And we took off, and we flew over, I can't remember the name of the valley there now. Anyway, we flew off, and we just hit this beautiful thermal going up, nice and huge. I mean, it was huge thermal. So for a beginner, it was just so easy. He just had to do gentle circles, no tight cores or anything like that. And it took us back up to 7,600 and something meters, right above we were right above Aconcagua. I mean, it was beautiful. It was unbelievable. Yeah. So I think that was the first time someone had actually ever flown above Aconcagua.
Wow.
And then we flew around, and we told the guys we'd come collect our gear at base camp. So we should have told them we'd collect it out, back on the road at the hotel, because we could have flown all the way back, like Anton did from the pass. But it was beautiful. I mean, it was unbelievable, and bloody cold. But and then we went in after sort of flying around for an hour. Eventually, we were freezing, and we went and landed at base camp. But it was
wicked.
That must have been one of the most memorable flights of my 7 summits. Just that, and doing it with someone, a good mate of mine who had just learned how to fly. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah, and really fantastic.
That was 2007, you said?
2007, if my memory serves me correct. Yeah.
All right. Wow, that was special. Yeah. Amazing.
Very, very nice. And luckily we were acclimatized, so it was, we didn't have to worry about oxygen and all that sort of stuff. It was great. Yeah.
Okay, so you've ticked off 3, right?
So we took it back in Aconcagua. I subsequently went back and flown off Aconcagua. So 2007, 2008, I did nothing. 2009, I decided to try Red Bull X-Alps. So that then I said, okay, let me, instead of going to go and do a mountain, let me go and do an X-Alps. It cost me, I think the first one cost me probably 60,000 rand, which is roughly $3,500 in today's terms.
Yep.
And so I thought, okay, let me save up for that and go and do that. It just sounds like I just loved the adventure, and I've been watching, because I think it started in 2003, the first one, if I remember correctly. So I sort of watched it twice and thought, okay, now I'm going to go and do this, enter this, and see what's, just apply and see if they'll accept me. So they did, and that was great fun. So began sort of 6 years of doing X-Alps.
Right. So what I've asked the others with this, and I'd love to do the same with you, is, so rewind back to 2009. I think that was the one.
So that was Kriegel's first race.
Kriegel's first one, Toma, I think, was second, and Hansa was third, I believe. It was, as I remember, that was a pretty bad weather year, wasn't it?
Hell, every race I've done has always been bad weather.
I remember 2011 was shockingly bad, but I'm pretty sure 2009 was pretty tough.
I bailed. Well, I didn't bail early. I got eliminated early. I ended up breaking my foot and having a bad. Basically, I crashed into the mountain, and I'll tell you about that now. Anyway, but so that was 2009. I went and decided to do. 2009 was my first X-Alps. And for me, it was just, what the X-Alps is, a huge adventure. And in those days, we didn't have the cell phones where, I don't think did they have Google then? Google Maps on cell phones, and I can't remember, because I've still got them. I've got this box of maps across the Alps, 150,000, that would track ourselves and work out how to go. And coming from South Africa and not knowing the Alps very well, I've been to climb a mountain here or there, but I didn't know the valley systems. And I've flown some competitions there, but I didn't. The valley systems are. You have to live in the Alps, I think, for a good 5-6 years and fly there to get to know those valleys well and how everything works. So for us and my friend James, who's Braid, who was the gradient person in South Africa, the gradient dealer here, he put me in contact with Andre, and Andre helped out with gliders and whatnot, and he was fantastic that way. And Tom was also a gradient pilot then, and there were a couple of other gradient pilots as well. That was a great adventure. I think I got eliminated. I was probably the second or third to get eliminated. And I was, where were we? We were flying around the Gross Lochner, I think, was the turn point, somewhere out down there. And I was thermaling, come over the pass, and we're thermaling on the southerly side there, going up, and I fell out the back of the thermal, but I was very close to the terrain, and I basically came around. I'm not going to make it, and I just smacked straight into this huge granite face, and it was a good, probably, I guess, 45 to 50 degree angle. So I ended up, and I hit it hard, and I sort of tumbled, and luckily my glider got caught in some little bush, and then I was just lying there on this granite thinking, geez, that was stupid, but luckily nothing's broken. Everything seems okay. And then I look around and I said, geez, but where are my shoes? I couldn't find my shoes. Both shoes were gone. And I was looking for them. I said, what the hell? And then I saw my foot was cut and bleeding quite badly. I thought, wow, the adrenaline's there, so you kind of don't feel much. And I then found my shoes, both my tackies, my running shoes, were up around my knees. And my feet, from hitting the granite, my feet had punched through the front of my shoes. And in so doing so, obviously the shoe, the webbing or whatever of the shoe had cut into my right foot, which hit the ground first, I think, took the hardest, the brunt of it, had cut right down to the bone on my toes. So my big toe and my toe next to it were right down to the bone. And there was blood, and my shoes had been pushed right up onto my knees. It was quite, it was quite weird. But so I just I radioed James, and I just said, James, call the doctor. I'm going to take off again and fly as far as I can before this adrenaline runs out, and I won't be able to walk. So I put my shoes back on, took some duct tape and wrapped them on so they wouldn't come, because the front of them was they were just flapping open. And then moved across off onto sort of 100 meters down onto sort of more where the grass was a little bit flatter, or the snow, should I say. and relaunched and just flew straight down the valley as far as I could. And by the time I got there, James had organised, luckily the team doctor was there from Red Bull, and he stitched my toes up, and he gave me an injection that just numbed my legs from the knee down. So I couldn't feel my legs from the knee down. And I thought, okay, this is okay. I can carry on. So, so I carried on for another day or two, and he said it'll wear off. I think he said it'll wear off in about 10 hours' time, and then he's not giving me another one. So I basically started running again because I couldn't feel anything. And
oh God, dude.
And it was eventually, obviously, the pain came back sort of the next day, and then I carried on limping around for another about half a day, and then I just said, no, this is just too sore. And I basically called it. But that was a good adventure. That was my first sort of taste of Red Bull. And I think I was in probably day 3 then, or day 2. I can't remember. I think it must have been day 2 at the course.
Oh, so it was pretty early on.
Yeah, it was very early on. So I lasted to day 3 or day 4, and then I just said, no, that's it. I'm out. And I actually waited for another guy to come past me before I declared my.
Yeah, as you should.
You should.
Yeah. So it's the unwritten rule. the honor
rule.
I
loved it, and I thought, that's it. I'm coming back to the next one. So. Yeah.
Wicked. Cool. So that wasn't enough to put you off crashing into the mountain. Wrapping your shoes around your knees. This is proper South African. I love it. Okay. So did you do any 7 summits between 9 and 11?
Yeah, I mean, 2000 and did I say, 10, I think it was, we did the Kili. We got permission to do Kili. It was either 2010 or 2011. No, it must have been 2010, September, that I got permission to go and do it. And we put a big team together. There was about 10 of us that were going to fly off Kili, and we decided to go in September. October is when the sort of the doldrums hit that part of the world, from a sailing point of view. And hopefully we said hopefully it'll transfer onto land as well, and there won't be too much wind, because a lot of people have a lot of bad wind up on Kili when they try to take off. A big Australian crowd was trying to do it at the same time, but they were trying to fly with like 100 people at a time. Can't remember the guy's name. They weren't very successful. Babu, I think, went with them and flew off in 2000 and must have been 13, or no, he flew off Everest in 2013. Anyway, but Babu did it after about a year or two after we had done it, and he did it in the howling wind. It's very, very risky. Anyway. So we did that, and out of the 10 of us, or 11 of us that were going to fly, only 3 of us managed to fly off. So the wind wasn't nice and gentle like we'd hoped. It was actually coming over the back, so coming from the crater over the back at about probably 5 to 10 k's an hour, and to try and do it, and we thought maybe we should launch into the crater and hopefully get a little thermal and go up and over. So we waited around to do that, and eventually the sun started warming up the east side, and nice strong thermals were coming through at a good sort of 6 k's a meter a second. A really nice big gust. So we thought, well, let's just take off into one of these gusts, and it'll push the tailwind out the way, and we'll take off. And that's exactly what we did. But there are 3 of us who were experienced. The others were all only been flying for maybe 3 or 4 years at that stage, and they just said, not a chance. They're not going to do this. It's just the risk seemed too high. But it was beautiful. So I took off in a tandem. I had a friend of mine who's busy. 2010, I decided to try and do the 7 summits with a friend of mine, Marianne Schwankart, who's a famous South African climber, and she's a photographer and videographer and everything. So I thought, well, you come along, we'll go tandem, and you can film everything, and we can make a little movie at the end of the day, So she's done a couple of them with me, except Everest she didn't, because it was just too expensive for both of us to go, and she won't come and do Vinson. That's more expensive than Everest nowadays. So, but yeah, so I've got a lot of footage that eventually, when I get the time, we're going to go through it and edit it ourselves sometime. But yeah. So anyway, that was the Kili, and then in 2011, the next X-Alps came up, and obviously you start training. The year before, you start sort of in November, you start your training. I'm sure you know how it all works, and and you train like hell and get fit, and and 2011 was a good year. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say just to remind the folks what the course 2011 was. I believe Toma was second, right? In that one, was
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
was the one, it kind of
Running
ran
man.
the
Yeah, I
whole
think he came
way.
second. Yeah, he ran. He can run that man. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
can't outrun that man. Um, yeah, and really bad weather. And I mean, we always say, yeah, it's really bad weather, but 2011 was
It
shocking. I
was.
think that was
I
Paul
remember there was a lot
Heuschelbauer's
of
first. He
rain.
did quite well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
because
it was a it was a good year to be really fast on the ground.
yeah. So it was a good year. It was turning out to be probably would have been my best year. And I did the first couple of days with with Hansa. I think 4 or 5 days I was with him, and we're cruising along nicely. We were sort of in between fourth and seventh place, and we're a nice pair flying together when we did fly and going through the night, etc. But we got sick. We ate something in one of the high altitude little. I think we got there just before the bell went at 11 o'clock. Oh yes, in 2009 that was the last 24-hour non-stop one. That was
Mm,
my yeah. In 2011 they introduced you had to stop for 4 hours. I think it's longer
yeah.
now. I think it's 6 hours now or 5 hours. I can't remember. But we just made it
Yeah,
to the
now
hut.
they have this last one. They have that adjusting rest. Now it's the long. You have I think it's maybe 7 hours, but
Oh
it's
wow.
but
Okay.
you can decide when you want to take it.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
quite an
okay.
interesting.
Okay.
It's something
Yeah.
Kriegel's been pushing for a long time because he's really felt like
Yeah.
the lack of sleep is super dangerous. So
Yeah. No, no, it
it
is
was
because
quite cool how it worked.
2011 I fell asleep thermaling up
Mm,
and yeah, we took off anyway. Let me go back. We ate something we just got into the hut at 11 o'clock, and the lady had some soup left, the dregs of the bowl kind of thing, and she gave us that, and we ate that. Next morning, we both took off again and carried on uh, onto I think the Tresemme was the turn point in
mm.
not Marmalada in the
Northern
Dolomites.
Dolomites there.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we got there and I started feeling sick during the day, and I think we separated in a flight, and I only saw him again at the turn point actually, and he was sweating. I just remember he was just like this. He was drenched, and it wasn't from the walk up. It was just he was just dying, and I thought, hey, my stomach, and
Oh,
I've already thrown up once in the morning. I wonder if we picked up the same thing. Uh, anyway, he went and got the turn point and went off to fly somewhere. I still was going to the turn point because I had stopped and had something to eat. Uh, but I had a really queasy stomach, and yeah, I took off, and clearly my mind wasn't with it because my speed bar wasn't done up, and I hadn't done my pod properly. So it was one of those. Oh God! Anyway, let me just get a thermal and go up and try and fly as far as I can. And I was up above the actual the three Tresemmers themselves, and going up really nicely. Sort of getting to 3.5, carrying on. And the next minute, I woke up. I don't remember like 15 minutes of it. And I'd actually fallen asleep, and my glide had just gone in whatever direction I'd fallen asleep in. And it was quite scary. You suddenly, shit, okay, I don't think. And then you think, okay,
dude,
I'm not.
wake up, wake up! You're just punching yourself in the face. Come on.
Yeah. And then I realized, yeah, it's not because of lack of sleep. I must obviously be quite sick. And then I landed, and then it hit me. After I landed, it hit me like a. The doctor came out, then I was throwing up and shitting myself, and the doctor came and said, "No, you pushed yourself too hard," because the day before we had done like 100 k's on foot, uh, and I said, "No, it's definitely not." Yeah, and
Something's
I think
wrong.
something's wrong. And I discovered Honza had exactly the same thing. We obviously had a stomach,
Oh,
we had a food poisoning, and yeah,
brutal.
and
Shit.
it is for me. It took me probably 3 days to recover, and I remember I sat I found a hut somewhere, and we just sat. I couldn't move. I literally couldn't move for about 2.5 days, and you just watch guys come past you, walking past, and I just sat there, going from like 6 to 7, 8, and I eventually end up at 21, whatever it was, and I managed to hold on to that sort of. I couldn't catch up after that, so that was
Mm.
probably my best year in terms of I was in the best shape, Red Bull shape that I had been. Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
it
yeah,
was all going pretty good until you ate the
until I
rotten
ate.
whatever it
Yeah.
was.
But anyway, that's part of the game, hey. But it was good. It was good.
Yeah.
Um,
That's been a part of Hans's game a couple times. You know, his I think 2009 was his no, 2007 was his first, but
yeah,
2009 he was
2009
really
was his
sick
good one.
before the start. You know,
Yes, yeah,
he was all sick heading up to the uh Dockstein.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right. But he recovered, I think, within a day and a half. He was back again, running. I mean, it took me like 2.5, 3 days to recover. It was brutal. Anyway,
it's the
but
worst.
uh, but that was great. And then I decided, okay, let me give it one more go in 2013. And did I do another summit between that? No, I didn't. I did X-Alps again. And in those days, we only had one report. I think 2013 was the time when you allowed two helpers. The other ones, you only allowed one. And shame, they worked like dogs. As you know, you've now sort of seen what happens in the background.
Yes. Oh, my God, it's a big job.
No, it's a huge job.
Yeah.
I take my hat off to any seconds. Yeah.
Oh,
I see now you're allowed like 3 or 4. So it's quite it must be a bit
you can have as many as you want.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. So
yeah, no, you can have as many as you want. I mean, some of the teams are, 4 vehicles these days and stuff. It's pretty wild. And it's really interesting, the strategy's really interesting. Kriegel's never had a big team. He just feels he always just had Thomas and that was it. And then they had kind of, they had their weather guy back in Switzerland and they had other people on the team, but the actual on the road team was him and Thomas for the most part. And then it got to the point, I can't remember when he switched this, I don't know, 2017 or 19 or something, where he just thought, okay, it's just now it's so advanced, it's so fast that, he needed somebody else. So I think their team this year was bigger than it had ever been, but it's still, compared to some of the others, is still quite small because it's more logistics, isn't it? It's just more to manage.
It is, I mean, 2013,
more things to go wrong in a sense.
Yeah. I had the same guy and I could only afford I paid for my second each time. So James, again, I couldn't afford another second. So I said, well, James, you buy yourself again. So he was great. I mean, it is a
you had the same supporter. I read in Wikipedia this morning that, the kind of the synopsis of all the races, you had him all 3, right?
Yeah, all 3. Yeah, just he knew what to, because Red Bull, you have to make those little movies and you have to do this and that, and if you don't, you get penalized. So James was very good at doing all that stuff. He kept it nice and tick. And then I just made all the sort of other decisions, and he'd try and give me weather when he could, but I was just flailing in the dark. I was never very good at it, but it was good fun. I just enjoyed the adventure. It was
yeah, right. So did you go into each one with a different goal? What was your kind of hope? Was it more just, hey, I'm just going for the adventure?
It was basically for the adventure. And the first time I did it, I said I just didn't want to get eliminated, but I did because I had the crash. So that was my first goal. The second time I wanted to try and be in the top 15. The second and third time, I just wanted to be in the top 15. I didn't. I mean, it would be lovely to make, goal, but I just wasn't in that league of flying. I just didn't have those skills and the knowledge of the Alps that you actually need. You need to go there for a couple of seasons and actually just learn those valleys backwards, and learn how those valley winds coming from South Africa. Those valley winds were just so confusing to me. They just blew my mind. I flew into.
It's a very, very complicated terrain, isn't it? I remember Nate has a great story. He showed up in 2007 to do it, and his wife was a supporter, and his Ripley, who was 2 years old, his first daughter was there, and his dad, and Ripley hated his dad because his dad was a chain smoker, and it's the funniest story ever. That she would call the Red Bull headquarters every day to find out where he was. He called her one day, hey, I'm kind of hungry. Can I get some food? Nate, we're at the pool, just so funny back in those days. But he said when he showed up, Ulrich or somebody, I can't remember who it was, with the organization, basically just said, hey, welcome to the Red Bull X-Alps. We're happy to have you here. You're from Idaho. You have no chance in this race. You have zero hope because you don't know the Alps. I mean, he wasn't being mean. It was just a fact.
No, it is a fact. You have to know the Alps. Yeah.
You have to spend a lot of time over there.
But it was
so 2013. Now, as I remember, the weather was really good in 2013. Until this year, that was the record for. It was.
I actually managed to fly over 100 Ks on one of the days. So for me, that was woo. I've actually, flown something in the X-Alps now. I didn't have less gradient. It wasn't the best glider they had made that year. But what can you say? But it was. I'm not going to blame it on the glider. I still wasn't a top flyer like everyone else. But they. I was hoping to again be in the top 15, but I stuffed up the first turn point going out to what was the first turn point then after Gijsberg? The
Gijsberg.
No, Gijsberg and then Dachstein. There, I went. We got caught in a bit of rain, and the other guys just bombed off down the valley, and I decided to land on top. This is the valley before the Dachstein itself.
Yeah.
You sort of go over a pass, and then you go down, I can't remember the name of the valley, and then you're onto the lake near, and you go up the back and up that Via Ferrata.
Yep.
And I decided to land on top there and wait out the rain. For some reason, that was a stupid mistake. Everyone else just bolted off, and I think they were out of the rain shower within like a K, and they carried on flying. And I just stuck in this bloody rain cloud for a good couple of hours, and eventually had to walk off, and it was a nightmare. So I ended up like at the back from that first turn point. But I managed to catch up. I think I ended up being 20th, if I remember correctly. But never had, as you said, it was good flying. Then the guys just, when it's good flying, they just fly.
Smoked it, yeah.
So they just smoked it, yeah. But it was great, yeah. I really enjoyed it. And I wish I could go back again, but my knees started giving problems. So I decided, no, let's rather not. And I've subsequently had in 2000 and when was it? 20? Yeah, I had my knees replaced. No, 21. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You got both knees replaced?
Yeah, both knees replaced. I decided to do that before I went to Everest, because I decided to go to Everest. I needed a year and a half to recover for my knees. So, because I couldn't, they got so bad, I was like holding onto a rail trying to walk downstairs. And I thought, wow, this is now getting bad. I need to do something about it. When you have to hold on to, at the shopping center, you feel like, it looked like an 80-year-old. So
was that a result of the crash, or was that just use and abuse over the years?
Use and abuse over the years. I've been running competitively since I was about 10 years old. And obviously I've had you hear lots of other people have been running since then and the knees are fine, but obviously my knees were just always going to go that way for whatever design I am. And yeah.
It's quite interesting, in my first was 2015, and the what everybody said was pretty true. Really only Toma ran. It was helpful to be able to run out of Mozartplatz up to the Gijsberg, and there were places where you wanted some speed, but for the most part, you just had to be able to move fast all day, and especially go up mountains all fast. Yeah. You didn't really have to run, but as between 15 and my last one, which was 21, and then this year reporting on it and watching, the Benoit, and there are a lot of guys that run a lot.
Yeah, I ran a lot.
Running.
I remember looking at my stats when Kriegel finished and I only got like halfway. I've sort of run 700 Ks and flown like 300, and Kriegel's the opposite way around. He's flown 700 and he's only run like 150 or walked 150, and just wow. Yeah, it's amazing. But I did a hell of a lot of running. I remember every time I got down to the valley, if it was on a road or a decent path, or that in Switzerland the paths and Europe the paths are good generally. You can run, and I just jog along at 6.5 minutes a case. Yeah, that's what I'd So and I think that's I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love that Sufferfest of it. I'm sort of my mind's like it. I enjoy the Suffer. So it's it's good.
Yeah. It's a nice place to be, isn't it? Yeah. Mentally, it's fantastic. There's only one way to get there, and the X-Alps will get you there for sure.
That's true. Yeah.
So after 13, where are we in the ticking off the big peaks?
So then we had done. So I'd done Elbrus. I'd done Aconcagua. I'd done Elbrus first, then I'd done Aconcagua, then I'd done Kili. And then I decided to go back to Elbrus with my tandem friend, Marianne. So we went back to Russia, had great parties again, and climbed the mountain and flew off.
Great.
And then she videoed it this time, because the first time all I had was some happy snaps of me flying. Nothing much. So that was great. that was successful. And then we went to go into Aconcagua again next for her to just experience that. So I've done Aconcagua 3 times.
Wow.
But this time when we got on top, it was a typical Ac. It just didn't. It was just howling from 5 in the morning. It just blew right the way through, sort of at 30, 40 k's an hour. So we just couldn't get off. And we then went down to our high camp at 6,000, and the next day we flew from there down to base camp. So she did get a flight off it. But yeah, so that was 2014, I think. It was the year. No, it was 2013. It was December 2012. It was Aconcagua. Yeah, because then I did X-Alps in 2013. Yeah, and then the next mountain we did was Denali in 2015. I went and tried that. I wrote to the parks. I started about 1.5 years or 2 years. I started writing to them saying, "Will you let me go? This is my name." Da, 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 da. And I must have written to them 3 or 4 times and always just got an answer. Not a chance, not a chance. And then a new ranger would come there, try him. I spoke to Andy about it, and Andy said, "No, this ranger, I know him. He's a good guy. He'll let you go, I'm sure." But obviously they got their rules there, and their bosses higher up they have to stick to, and he couldn't. And so it went. So we thought, let's go there and just sneak up and fly off. And when I got there, obviously, because I'd written to them, they knew I was obviously on a list there. Watch out for this guy. He's going to try and come paraglide off. Right. And as we walked in the door, they had a lawyer's letter prepared. We had to sign it. And yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was, anyway. But it was beautiful. I really enjoyed. Yeah, we summited. Yeah, we did it in, I think, 8 days or 7 days. It was very quick. Pulled all our own gear up, put it on the sleds and had that whole walk in and the whole. Yeah, it was I really enjoyed it. It was really fantastic.
Alaska's amazing.
Really out there. Yeah, I mean, it is an out there mountain. If you aren't doing it with a guided group, I just took 2 mates of mine and we went off and we did it, and it was really a great adventure. And for being South African and not big with snow, it was really exciting.
Yeah,
crossing all those crevasses and looking for them, and roping up and all that stuff. It was fantastic. And bloody cold, actually. That mountain was cold, if I remember. Yeah, it was a cold mountain.
I was surprised because you said you were up on top and you were in a t-shirt and you had quite a nice day. But they always talk about that.
Getting to that point, I think we must have had minus 25 on some days. It was bloody cold.
Yeah. I mean, everybody always talks about that Denali is, depending on luck of when you do it, it can be the hardest just because it's so cold. It's so freezing.
I remember they told us a big system was coming in, and that's why we pushed it to do it. And I think we did it in 8 days. We just thought, no, let's just get up this thing before we get caught here for like a week. But I remember, luckily on summit day, it must have been just before the storm, because we summited and we then walked out the whole way. We picked up our stuff and we walked right out to where the airstrip is. That was a long day. Wow.
That's a long day.
And then they said, okay, that's it. No more flights coming in the next day because the storm's coming. And luckily we persuaded the lady there. I can't remember, she was so nice. We saw a tourist guy coming past and we said, please radio him, see how many tourists he's got in his plane. And there were 2. And we said, come land, we'll give you tea and stuff and your tourists can run around the glacier. So the pilot was all keen. He relayed it to them and they said, cool. They landed and then we jumped in the plane and flew out of them. And that's it. And then it was snowed in. I think we came in and they couldn't do anything for like a week or 10 days. So it was, it was great fun.
The weather's rowdy up there. I mean, you're so close to the ocean that it's just, it's that maritime air and God, it can be so cold. And vicious. Really
but I mean, it's a place I definitely want to go back again sometime to actually do some nice climbing there. There's some beautiful climbing.
And there's good flying too.
And good flying, yes.
Really good flying. Cool. Okay, so that's 2015.
Yeah. Then I looked at doing X-Alps again, but I thought, no, my knees are just, I'm just going to make them worse. And then some other South African guys tried X-Alps. I see they've only done it. Who is it now? Can't remember his name. Kotza was his surname. I just can't think of his first name now. I should know it. Anyway. So he did it, and then another guy from Cape Town did it in 2018. I think that's the last South African that
done it.
has tried, or maybe others have actually gone on and they just haven't been accepted. I'm not sure. Yeah. But I find that's quite disappointing with X-Alps, that they don't allow more of the outliners. I know it's a race for them and it's also a marketing thing, so that's nice to have, but they should try and make it a bit more inclusive in terms of having some more, even though the guys aren't going to win or aren't going to come, they're just the adventure and getting the, that spirit with all the other guys, because for them it's even a bigger adventure. I mean, it's so out there for, if you don't know the Alps, it's really is, So they should allow, I think, some more guys from one or two countries in there, instead of having like 4 people from Switzerland or 4 people from the European countries. Let a couple more in from outliners.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's a hard thing, isn't it? Because you got so much. I mean, the French could have 10 easily, in terms of ability, or all of them. They could all be French. There's so many really good athletes. I've never. They at least have never told me. I have no idea how many people apply for the X-Alps. They've never allowed behind the veil there, and I'm sure a lot of the decision is just, is this person going to have? Do they have the ability to not get hurt?
Yes,
I'm sure they're looking at it as just but it's all fascinating, isn't it? I mean, it's.
And then I mean, I must come and do your race at the Red Rocks race, hey?
Yeah,
I've looked at that a couple of times. I'd love to actually come over and do that sometime. So before I get,
it's wicked. It's an incredible venue. It's really, really, really neat. It's spectacular. The fall colors that time of year. It's truly psychedelic. We use that word all the time, but it really is. And it's a pretty neat area. It has none of the accoutrements that the Alps does. There's no huts, there's no trails, but it works. You can top land and there's launches. That's tangly and messy. It'd be more South Africa, and the terrain is really neat. It's pretty special. The Europeans that have come over, and they've had a really good time.
Because I did. No, I never raced with Nick in the X-Alps, because my last one's 2013. Nick then started with you, I think, in 2015.
Yeah, we both started together. Yeah,
because he came over to South Africa. I had a little race called the X-Berg Challenge.
Yeah,
in the Drakensberg, and it was sort of like a 300 or 400k race down the escarpment. And I started that for training in 2000. We must have had the first one in 2000. No, it was my last race, 2013. So training for that race, I thought, let me just put something together. And I'd invited like 10 friends. Some of them ran and some of them were on mountain bikes. I said, okay, I'll race you from this point to 350 Ks, I think it was, or 400 Ks down the range. And I invited some other paragliding friends that were into hike and fly. There are not many in South Africa, only a handful of us that enjoy it. And that's how our little X-Berg thing started. And
it's still going, isn't it?
No, I do it now, but informally. I just.
Oh, okay.
It was a labor of love, I'm sure it's a lot of work to put these things together.
A lot of work.
And we did it for 8 years, and then I decided, no, this is a lot of work, and and when people are paying you, you then got, you're responsible. If someone, you're liable, put it that way. When people start paying for an event in South Africa anyway, you are liable if something goes wrong badly, and you can be seen to have been negligent. So I just thought, no, the risk is just too high. Just now someone is going to kill themselves, and then maybe I have forgotten to tick some box and I'm going to get sued. So I thought, okay, let me just do it
that
for
side
fun
of
now.
It makes me really nervous. I remember when Nick was on. I've had him on a couple of times, but he was very complimentary about the X-Berg. He had really
he was amazing. So we raced all the way down, and Nick just arrived there, and we met up a couple of times, and Nick, I came across him the one day. I think we stopped at a hotel sort of late evening, and we ended up having a burger together and then carrying on and sleeping somewhere in the bush. But his feet were sore, and Nick was just, that's it, I'm just walking barefoot now. And he just goes feral. He just walks along barefoot on this rough ground. it was it was an eye opener. He really enjoyed it. I mean, he was he actually stayed
he really is part animal.
Yeah, he is. It's amazing, isn't it?
He's very comfortable in very uncomfortable situations.
Yes,
he needs the least of any of us. He'll be just fine.
I said, what food have you got? No, I've just got this little bag of nuts for the whole day.
That's
it
for the whole day. Cheese.
Yeah.
He doesn't need anything. That's amazing. I mean, all of us, we've got these big teams and vans and cookers and all this fancy stuff, and he's got a Subaru and his mom. It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
Amazing. But you must ask him to tell you one day about his, I don't know if he ever has, about his night out in a herdman's hut. Basically, if you're right on top of the escarpment in Lesotho, you just get these little huts with the odd herdman in it, and he got invited into it. But he tells it so well; it's hilarious how funny it is.
Catch up with him on that. That sounds excellent. So was the next one? Let's go. Sorry.
So then he then went on to. I remember I told him, you must go and do X-Alps. Maybe it was already in his mind to go and do it. I said, you're going to be amazing if you go and do that race, and you're going to love it. And the next year, 2015 it was. 2 years later, he went and did it. It was it was so great seeing him doing it. But
he's a big fan favorite for sure. All those years, absolutely. He and I had quite a battle together.
Yeah, I've got a little house down there in the Berg, and he stayed there, I think, for a month and a half, just flying around and going down rivers. He had that little blow up, flat bottom canoe thing that I don't know what they're called, but so he really enjoyed himself there. It was fantastic.
Yeah, cool.
So then that was 2015. We did where was I now? We had just done
Denali.
Yes. Yeah. So then we went on. I then had to go and do the next sort of. I was going by expensive. My process of choosing the mountains was the cost of how much it cost to do them, because I put a whole lot of money aside for Everest and Vinson, and that was slowly making its own babies and getting better and better. But I then save up for the next sort of cheap mountain, and that turned out to be Carsten's Pyramid. So of the 7 summits, you have a little bit of it's either Carsten's Pyramid or Kosciuszko, if I pronounce that correctly, in Australia.
Yeah.
So Kozi's just a little mound. I think it's 2,000.
Yeah, I've been up Kosi. That's there's not much to that. It's a paved road to the top, as I remember.
So I looked at it, and I then went and looked at Zeb and Claire, and they hadn't done Carsten's Pyramid. They had only done Kosciuszko. So I thought, okay, I haven't done Denali, even I climbed it, but let me try and do Carsten's. I got hold of some guys who had done Carsten's. They said, no, you had to go and do it through an agent because there's militia there and they're always fighting, and they're fighting with the big gold mine there, and it's a bit of a thing to actually climb the mountain. And sometimes you have to get smuggled up through the mine, or you have to get helicoptered in if they're fighting, because you might get held to ransom if you go through the rainforests, which I wanted to do. I wanted to walk up through the rainforest and everything. Anyway, so
where do you start? Is that Port Moresby, or where do you start in Papua New Guinea to do Carstens? Where
at the basically the big town there.
Okay. Moresby.
It's got the mining village there as well, and everything. All the expats stay there, and
okay.
Yeah. And so we were going to walk in from there. We got there, and we have to hang around a couple of days. And the guy was going back and forth and saying, "No, there's problems with the insurgents and the guys that want to blow the mine up and infighting and whatnot." So we said, "Okay, no, let's wait and see if it calms down, and then we'll carry on walking." So he said, "No problem." And then he eventually comes back and said, "No, listen, we're going to have to chopper you in." Maybe he just wanted the money and is bullshitting us. It's going to be an extra $500, $600 each because it's too dangerous to go any other way. So it's okay, no problem. Yeah. It's a bit disappointing because we're really looking forward to the walk, because it's beautiful rainforest there, and really amazing hike, looking at the pictures, videos I'd seen. Anyway, so we chop it in, and that was an eye-opener of note. We get in there, and another pilot climbs in with him, so there's 2 of them. And we then discovered that the pilot that we're going with is now learning. So So we think, okay, you're going to what? You're going to put us down at like 4,300 meters or 4,400 meters. And okay, I hope you've learned enough. You've got enough hours under your belt. And we packed this thing full. They loaded up. They load this. This is a little, what are those choppers? A little squirrel. Alouette, but it's now the squirrel, or whatever it's called now. So it's a powerful little chopper, but they loaded up to the max. So on takeoff, this is down at sea level. He goes up and you can hear them talking to each other. And the guy comes and says, "Oh, it's a little bit heavy. Just put it down." And they unload a couple of more tents or chairs, whatever. Pack it up. Okay, this should be okay. This is the instructor. Okay, let's go. Off we go. And and you go up the mine. You're going up these valleys, following the mine road all the way up. And eventually the mountain's off to the south of you, or to the sort of southwest, or southeast. And the mine is just, it must be one of the biggest mines in the world. It is just huge, but they're just like destroying that mountain, just digging into it and mining it.
Yeah.
Really horrible to see. But, we get up and we see the mountain. Okay, now we have to go up this other little valley that leads up from the mine. And you start cruising and we suddenly see this hill. And the guy says, okay, we have to get enough speed so you can make it over the hill, and then literally 500 meters after that, we land in the valley. And he goes over there, and they then start speaking in their language, and it's getting more and more rapid and more and more. And the guy's obviously trying to crank this helicopter to its max, and he just goes over this hill by like a meter. I mean, I was sweating myself. And then he picks up speed going down the other side, thank God. And we had so he had to go sort of fly up to 4.7 to get over. And he drops back down to about 4.5, 4.4 where we're landing. And he comes to hover it in, and he says, okay, no. Then the pilot then comes and speaks English to us and says, okay, no, look, we can't hover it in, guys. We're going to do a skid landing here. We're just going to slide it in because we're scared we're going to, auto-rotate or something when we come into land, or just won't have the air density pressure or whatever to land this thing. And so that was a bit of an opener when you're just coming in and the guy just puts the skids down and just slides in for like 10 meters in the chopper and then stops it. So that was really an eye opener, but really beautiful little mountain. And once you're away from the mine, and the scenery is unbelievable. Yeah. And
were you able to take off from the top?
Not from the very, very top. I think in today's glider, if I'd had like the little bantam, we probably would have managed to do it, where you can throw it up. It's just, the rock is so gnarly and so
it's
gritty. It just grabs it's very steep, but the rock is very sharp. It's like the back of I don't know what to, it's like Fynbos in the Cape, but it's rock. And it just grabs everything. It holds your lines, it tears it. I mean, when we climbed it, we wore leather gloves. That's how rough the rock is, just so you don't cut your hands up.
Wow.
And the leather gloves get shredded just from it's a limestone that's from the rain. It's just full of these sharp little sort of inch and a half little spikes everywhere over the rock. It's quite amazing. So we couldn't take off. So we walked back down. They're sort of like it's about a 1,200 meter scramble. And they've put up some little rope, Tyrolean sort of bridges you haul yourself over and whatnot. We took off. We then walked back. On the way up, we then found a place where this would be comfortable to take off here. And there's a little bit of gravel around, so the gliders wouldn't get too damaged and the lines wouldn't get caught on. And we took off there. So we took off literally about 250 meters below the summit. Yeah. So that was the first time someone had actually flown off from Papua New Guinea.
I bet. I mean, I've seen pictures of it and stuff. I mean, aren't you totally surrounded by jungle? Where do you land?
Yeah,
you could back at the mine, or
no? We landed back at our base camp, where the helicopter dropped us. Just because they just said, please don't fly over the mine. We'll get into trouble. They'll probably try and shoot you down. They had a whole lot of reasons why not to, but we could have easily flown all the way back down to the town. Yeah, would have been a beautiful flight. Yeah. Because you could fly to the coast, actually. It's not that far. So.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Yeah. How high is Karstens?
Karstens it's just under 5,000, I think.
It's big.
Yeah. It's not a small. Yeah, it's 5 Karstens. I wrote it down here somewhere because I knew you'd ask me. 5,000. Yeah, just under 5,000. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they land you at 4.5, and then you got, I think, like 1,500 meters of actual sort of rocky scrambling to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite steep. I think it's
Oh,
about a
wow.
grade, probably 5.9 at one place. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
they've got a rope which you just clip onto, and you can sort of self belay yourself. But yeah. So
Huh.
yeah,
Wow, cool.
no, nice
Neat.
little mountain.
That's way more of an adventure than Kazi,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
Then we went to Kazi. We then went, landed there, and hired a car, drove up there, and walked up to that little mountain across all the little grids and the things on stilts. They've got that winding road. I don't know if you did it there, not the road, but they've got the grids on stilts so that you
Yeah.
don't walk on the marsh, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
damage any of the fauna and flora. So we
Right.
climbed up there, and then we just flew down the literally like 150 meters. And you can't fly much further unless it's a really thermic day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
and
Australia's got a lot going for it, but mountains aren't really one of them.
no, and we should have actually gone and flown at
Airs or something.
yeah on the way out or something, but we didn't. We set aside 2 days 2 weeks to go climb at in Tasmania, which was fantastic. Tasmania is a beautiful country,
Yeah.
nice little
Yeah.
island, eh? Wow. Yeah, and fantastic rock climbing there. So we went and did that for 2 weeks,
Mm.
and then we went to try and fly off Mount Cook after that.
Ah, wicked.
So yeah, so I've got a brother who stays in Christchurch, so who lives there. So
Yeah.
we went across to him and stayed with him, and then popped over, and we helicoptered into Mount Cook. And because I discovered Mount Cook, if you look at my website, Seven Summits, Seven Flights, it's Seven Summits, Seven Flights plus one when the website opens. And the plus one, my daughter discovered that New Zealand's actually the eighth continent. It was declared,
Ah.
it was declared its own continent in 2017. So
Wow. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Good thing you got it. Good thing you ticked it off.
No, well, we didn't get it. We walked.
Ah.
It was out of condition, so we flew into the camp to the high hut there, and we trapped all the way up and got to the Bergstrand, and we couldn't cross it. It was just too wide. And the guide, not the guide, but the helicopter pilot had told us, no, it's probably out of condition. You won't get across the Bergstrand, which is basically the opening between the rock and where the glacier pulls away from the base of the mountain. And it was like 10 meters wide, and sort of, you look down, and it's like 100 meters. No way you're going to cross this thing. And we couldn't find a way across it, so we just turned and we walked out, we should have called for a helicopter to come pick us up. But wow, that was a walkout. Very deceptive there in New Zealand, those mountains, the beautiful mountains. So I want to go back and fly there and again sometime, now that I've got a brother that lives there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some neat flying going on down there. A guy named Benjamin Kellett and of
No,
course
I've
Louis,
seen,
and there's a bunch
Tom
of them.
and
They're doing
Ferdy who did that big traverse. And
yeah,
wow, no,
really
beautiful.
cool stuff happening
Yeah.
down there in the Southern Alps.
So,
Really
yeah.
cool, very cool. All right, and
So-
then I think we're up to Everest now, right? Is that
So-
next?
Yeah, then it was Everest, and that was really just saving up, and until I had the money, or waiting for my money that I put away to grow, which it had, and then I had my operation for my knees, had to recover from that. So I had both knees done at the same time, and which was probably the most painful experience I've ever had. When you wake up,
that's
and
a tough one.
the doctor is a friend of mine, the orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Mark Human, and he said, okay, normally I don't allow any of my patients to have both done at the same time, but I know you, and you're a fit guy, and I know you can put up with the pain, but he says no amount of morphine is going to stop this pain. And boy, he wasn't joking when he said that. That was the most
Really?
excruciating. I think when I woke up and that pain just hit me, you pump that little morphine bottle as much as you want. It did nothing. I mean, it was probably for a good, I reckon, 5 hours, 6 hours. It was the most agonizing pain I've ever gone through, but it was, we survived it. But yeah. And happy now to be back on my feet. And then I decided that's it. Now I can go and do Everest once I recovered from that. Yeah. So, and that was an experience and a half. It really was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, XC-Mag did a great article on this, but so for those of you listening, you can check that out. But yeah, so give us the highlights. That was.
So
did you do it with the gal that was doing the photography and stuff too, or no? That you said that was too expensive.
No, yeah. So I just went by myself and I took an Insta 360 and basically filmed it like that. And yeah, so I've got hundreds of hours of walking up Everest and all the stuff that goes with Everest and the flight down. And so I still have to do something with that. I just a friend of mine put a little clip together, but that's sort of on YouTube. And yeah, but Everest itself it's been a dream of mine to climb it from ever since I was climbing since a teenager. So that was already a dream of mine coming true. And then since I could paraglide, why not fly off it? So when you look back in the history of Everest itself is just it's just one of those iconic mountains. If you put aside all the other stuff that goes with Everest and all the nonsense about it these days and all the politics and the I don't know. The people that shouldn't be climbing it that do climb it and get hauled up Everest and all the drama that goes with it and the politics. Put that aside, it is an amazing, iconic mountain. It really is. It's got a lot of history to it, and flying history as well. Actually, Mark, our butcher is Bovin, or however you say the French name. I should know how to do that because my mother's French. So he flew off it in 1988. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he landed, the gliders, I think it was actually 1987 when he flew off it. And he took off from just below the summit and only made Camp 1 just above the ice fall. That was his glide angle. He managed to get out of the glider. It was like a one and a half or something. I don't know. It was like,
oh God.
Like a 70-degree slit this angle, boom, straight down.
Basically in a parachute. He was parachuting down.
Yeah. A wingsuit would have got further.
Yeah, right. Way further.
And then there was others have flown off it, but like from much lower off on the mountain, from sort of 6,000 meters here and 5,000 meters here and there. But all of it was illegal, and I had this little goal to do it legally, and I asked various people to try, and eventually someone, actually an X-Alps pilot, put me onto Asian Trekking, Dawa Stephen Sherpa, who runs that company, and I think it's the oldest Everest company. It's been running for 45 years. His father started it, and Dawa Stephen took it over, and they're well-connected family in terms of being there for so long, and they're well-connected in Nepal. And he started skydiving Everest, where they take you up at base camp and you can jump out of a helicopter at 6,000 meters and land back at base camp. So he started that little thing as well. So I thought this is definitely the guy to speak to. He's got the contacts. He's got skydiving approved there. He just has to get us flying off the mountain. So he went knocking around on doors for me and came back with a no. So this is like a year before the trip. And then he came back 6 months later, no. And I said, okay, well, I'm booking with you now anyway. And if I have to, I'm going to do it legally. So I told him that. And he ummed and ahed and argued with me. And I said, well, yeah, let's carry on knocking on the door. And he carried on doing that. And luckily for us, one of the ministers actually portfolios changed, and they got a new guy in. And they had just been through COVID, and their numbers were down with tourists. So Dawa approached him and said, listen, let's give this to this chap. It's going to increase give us a lot of exposure if he manages to fly off. And there's a lot of pilots out there that might want to come and do this. You never know. This might, it might take traction. And so the day before, my summit day. So you go then, you acclimatize for like a month and a half, and then you wait for the window and the opportunity to climb Everest, because you have to wait for for the jet stream to lift and move out the way, so you can actually climb it without getting killed. And obviously for flying, you don't want the jet stream around. And literally the day before, the night, he came to me and said, Pierre, I've got good news. They have just emailed me your permit. And I was, thank fuck for that, because I was going to, we were always talking in base camp, no, you can't do it legally. I'm going to get fined. You're going to get fined. Please don't. It's not worth it. and paragliding will never be allowed again. And but the permit came through, and now it opened the whole region up. Jirai Kurin, who is there now, a friend of mine. I don't know if you know Jirai he's been in Cross Country magazine a couple of times. I think he's done X-Alps once. He went there flying, and he was flying around that area. So they now opened it up, and you can actually just go pay your little permit and go fly there. It is very busy. I wouldn't, in terms of helicopters and that, it is a busy valley. I mean, it is helicopters non-stop going up and down. So I would take an airband radio and try and communicate with them, because generally the helicopters are in the middle of the valley, and we'd be on the side of the mountain, so we should be pretty safe. But
how did Babu do it then? Did they have a permit, or was that illegal?
No, they did it illegally, and
I didn't know that.
Just because he's Nepalese and that, they turned a blind eye and gave him a slap on the wrist, and so he got away with it. But I must say his tour operator wasn't very impressed, because he went on as helping the cook, as sort of a helper, and then him and the cook just went up the mountain.
Really? I didn't know that background.
No, they got they weren't very happy with Babu, but I think in retrospect now everyone laughs about it. But it was an amazing adventure what he did. I mean, wow, taking off, flying all the way down, and then jumping in a canoe, and it's amazing what he did. Really
all the way to the sea. That was a good mission for sure.
So Babu was part of me getting my permit as well. Actually, the Minister of Tourism then said, well, we want you to be signed off that you can actually fly, that you are a paraglider pilot, that you are able to fly off Everest. And we would like Babu, because Babu is the Nepalese guy who flew off Everest last. We want him to approve you. So I thought, that should be okay. I know Babu. I met him at X-Alps. We walked together for a whole day in 2013. So I just sent him a mail saying, Babu, please, when you get this from the minister, sign me off. And he said, no problem. So I was lucky in that sort of sense that happened, and that Babu managed also. So I guess Dawa, Stephen and Babu were maybe putting a bit of pressure on the minister, and it worked out for me. And
so wicked.
Anyway, but
Babu's such a good soul. I can't remember which one he competed in. It was one of the ones I did. I don't know if it was 2015 or 2017, but he had done Everest. That had happened.
Yeah.
And then he showed up at the Red Bull X-Alps, and I might have this slightly wrong, but he gave a presentation for that club in Geneva, and I was there. I was giving a presentation on some film that I had done. I can't remember which one that was either, but afterwards he came up to me and said, "Hey, I would really like to. Can you tell me about this thing I keep hearing about called the Vario?" And I went, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I would like to compete in the Red Bull X-Alps with a Vario. Can you tell me how it works?" And are you fucking kidding me, Babu? Seriously? I mean, it was just, I just gave him a big hug. Man, I'm so glad there are people like you still out there in the world. You've flown off Everest, but you haven't flown with a Vario. That is awesome.
Yeah. No, he was an amazing character, cool. Babu. Yeah.
I mean, fantastic.
When I was with him, very broken English, but it was great. We still managed to communicate. But and he's got a very nice setup where he is now. So
I've heard. I've heard it's amazing. I've heard it's amazing. Well, so what were the unique memories from the? How was it? You flew off the top, didn't you?
No, they didn't. So my permit only allowed me to fly from 8,000 meters.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me go from the top for whatever reason. The permit to fly off, besides the climbing permit, the flying permit, they came to an agreement. Actually, there was an Australian guy. They're also trying to fly off at the same time as me. I've forgotten his name now. I should have written it down. So both of us were applying, and Dawa Stephen was the guy who was applying for both of us. And he agreed before I got there, before I got to Nepal. He was there like a week earlier. He had gone and sat down, even though the minister hadn't agreed to giving us a permit yet. He had negotiated a $5,000 permit fee to fly off, which was a bit of a shock to me. I suddenly had to fork out $5,000, which was not good for our bank account. But anyway, it was to fly off. So Ken, that was his name. I said, thanks, Ken, for that. But maybe I wasn't in those negotiations, and Ken came to that. But I wish he had stuck to like $1,000 or $500. But anyway, it was. So anyone now that goes to go and try and fly up Everest, they're going to have to fork out a $5,000.
That's kind of the precedent.
And Ken sort of said that's it, no more. And maybe if he had said maybe 8,000 for the top, they would have said yes, go to the top. I don't know if it was a money thing, or if it was they never told us, or if it was just a political thing because the summit is shared with China. They didn't want to have any fallout with China with someone flying off the top. I'm not sure. Yeah. So they just said no, 8,000. That's it. Please don't go above that. So that's basically the South Col. And that was, when I got there, I never went to the top. I'd love to go to the top of Everest, but I had to make a decision because of the weather that was changing. And to go back and climb Everest and pay that fee again, which in South African terms is a lot of money. It's, I think it's going to cost you, $60,000, $70,000. Yeah. The cheapest sort of trip.
Wow.
So it's, so to pay that sort of money again to go and climb just to the top of the mountain, I don't know if I really want to, if I'm that keen. I'd rather go and do another 8,000 meter peak. That's like Joy or one of those, which I probably am going to do sometime, and they cost a tenth of the price of Everest. So
sure.
But so it was, when I got up there, it was the decision to, the weather was coming in, and it's amazing the guys, they get their weather from guys in Switzerland and someone from actually in the States that gives the weather as well. And they're accurate down to almost like the hour. It's amazing.
Wow.
They can predict it that well. I woke up and the guys just said, listen, my summit day, they just said it's going to be snowing by between 12 and 2 o'clock. It's going to be a whiteout on top. You won't be able to take off, from the South Summit upwards. Basically from 7,500 meters upwards, it's going to be snowing. And so then you sit there and you're discussing with your Sherpa, if you're really fit, can you make it back down here by 10 in the morning? And you're leaving, the summit day, it's only like 800 meters or 700 meters that you have to go. No, it's 850 odd meters. And so it's not very high if you think about it, if you're at sea level or at 2,000 meters in the Alps, it's quick, But up there, it takes you, a fit guy will go leave at like 9 in the evening and only be back down at about 11, 12 the next day.
Wow.
So it's like a 15-hour to 18-hour day. And I'd been sick, quite sick at Camp 2 on my way up, and I had stayed for 4 days. I hadn't eaten for 3, and I'd vomited myself, to like 7 kilos lighter, and so I wasn't in the strongest and best shape. And when I got up there, I just said I took it after that. I just took it camp by camp. If I get to Camp 3, fantastic. If I'm feeling sick at Camp 3, I'm going to bail and fly down from there. If I get to the South Col, that's fantastic. I eventually got to the South Col and I was feeling okay. And I said, okay, maybe I can go for the summit. But then they told me this weather prediction, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to make a decision, and I'm not that fit, so I'm not going to make it up and down by 12 o'clock. And my teammates who went, they only made it down around about, the quickest, I think, was around about 3 o'clock. So he came down in the whiteout, in the snow, and the slowest, which maybe would have been me because I wasn't in the best of shape, came down at like 6 that evening. So I decided,
they went right through the storm.
I'm here to fly off it. Let me fly off, and the summit I can always tag another time. If I make a lot of money along the way, I can go back and tag it another time. So we got up at 6 and checked, and there were clouds in the valley, and couldn't see the body. Couldn't see landing. It was just a whiteout as far as you could see at sort of 5,000, 6,000 meters. The clouds were just banked up. So I went back, had tea, got up, checked at 10. Then the wind had picked up, and it was howling like 60 k's an hour. And the clouds had broken up. So at least something was happening. Basically, the whole air mass was now coming up the valley and up to our altitude. Because you're looking at, you got 5,000 meters, and you got 67, and then you got 7 to 8. You got these different sort of altitudes as you go up.
Yeah.
And the weather patterns seem to differ between altitudes. It's quite amazing. And then we're having more tea. That's all you do up there is drink tea. And my Sherpa was having his 100th cigarette. And it's amazing, those guys. They go the whole way up just puffing away. Hey? They are so strong. It's unbelievable. Wow. Anyway, so we are having our 100th cup of tea as well. And suddenly the tent, it's not actually shaking as much as it was like an hour and a half ago. I said, okay, this is getting promising. Let me go and have a look. So zip everything on and climb out and walk to the edge. And the wind was feeling, this is maybe takeoffable. It's like, feels 35 to 40 k's an hour. That's what it feels like. And you think, at home, if I take off, I'm going to have to go on speed bar straight away, and maybe I'll be able to edge forward and get out of the compression here. But okay, it's looking promising. Walk a bit further. Okay, the clouds have opened up. There's gaps in the clouds. So, okay, no, I think I can do this. So went back to the tent, started kitting up. My Sherpa came out. We called some other Sherpas from other teams because they tried the glider. The glider's just blowing all over the place, and it was one of those lightweight gliders. So the wind just blows them like a rag. So I got them to hold it down for me, and I thought, hell, when I pull this thing up, I'm going to get this wind it's feeling strong, but I'm going to get yanked backwards before I get it under control. Anyway, so I pull it up, tell the guys to leave it, pull it up, and nothing happens. It like pops up. Have to control a little bit. It's a bit faster than usual. Obviously, at 8,000 meters, the thing is now reacting a bit like a sort of a comp wing. You sort of have to catch it quite quickly. And this is like an A glider we're talking about. So it's okay. This is doable, but it's not lifting me. It's not dragging me. And then I have to start bloody running to get this thing to fly. I think I must have the longest sprint. Well, it felt like a sprint on Everest as well. Must go down on the record books. I had to like run 20 or 30 meters to get the glider to fly. And you're running Crazy. There, and I was so out of breath. It was unbelievable. I thought I was going to pass out, even though I had oxygen on me. It was, and I took off, gave a yell, and then I'd sat and I panted. I thought I was going to pass out. I just kind of like hung there, sort of in a delirious state, and slowly the oxygen. I actually took my mask off because I thought I could breathe. I just couldn't get oxygen. You get that feeling where you can't breathe. You just can't get enough oxygen. Yeah. And eventually I thought, okay, that's stupid. Put the mask back on. That's where the oxygen is. And sort of sucking big breaths. And eventually I sort of flew out, and we discussed it with the helicopter pilots. I'll stay on the right-hand side of the valley all the way down and do the dog leg. And I'd chosen a spot to land down at Gorka Shep, which is only grass, because I didn't want to land in the rocks and at base camp or the ice, just in case I came in too fast, because it's 5,500 meters you're landing at. In the video, you can just hear me breathing. I'm breathing like a run, sprint of 1,000 meters as quick as I could, the whole way down. It was just this, the whole way. Anyway, but it was, and it was totally surreal. It was unbelievable. I mean, that flight was just, even though I only took off at 8,000 meters, if I'd actually got my breath, or maybe, I don't know how you would have, maybe if I'd had a bigger glider and maybe a more high performance glider, I think I could have actually caught something and gone to the top, ridgesoared up to the top. I really do.
Wow.
I was just in such a buggered state. I just didn't, I just couldn't do anything else. I was just so broken from that run. And someone is going to do it. Someone's going to go and take off from there. If you take up a nice sea glider or a D-wing, and a little bit bigger than your normal size.
Something that has a little bit of performance.
I'm sure you could actually take off from Gorka Shep and fly to the top of Everest. So someone's definitely going to do that as well. So
wow.
Because I went through a big thermal. I look at my track log. I went through a 2.5 meter second thermal for about a good 20, 30 meters, and I didn't even register it. I was so buggered. But I could have actually taken that up, and the clouds were going up the side. I think I could have ridgesoared up to the top. But anyway.
Wow.
Cool. It was really a surreal experience, and just flying through those clouds, and you're flying over base camp, and you're still at 7,000 meters going over base camp. You're higher than Palmori. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. So
there must be something so gratifying about, I mean, all these years and money and time invested and everything, and then having the experience.
It was. Well, I think it was. from the flying, if you look at it just purely flying and forget about the scenery, is that it wasn't, it was a flight, a foofy down basically of just over 20 minutes. So from that point of view, it wasn't, but just flying off Everest and just that experience and flying through that history of it, it was just so, it was just unbelievable. I mean, it brought me to tears when I was landing. I was just, I was overwhelmed. Yeah. So it really was very, very special.
Oh, I'm sure you were. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a nice one to have ticked off now.
Nice to be able to breathe again. Must have been nice.
Yeah, it was nice to get into the warm air from like minus, I think it was minus 15. It wasn't that cold on top, but it was. And luckily,
Wow.
Dawa Stephen had the sense to send a Sherpa, because I hadn't actually planned. I knew I was landing, but I didn't have any kit to, I had my long johns and then my down Everest suit over that. So to walk back, and now you're in like 10, 15 degrees. So luckily he had the sense to send one of the porters down with some tackies and shorts and a shirt, and so I could walk back. I sort of landed 8 Ks away from base camp. So yeah,
right.
Yeah,
wow,
no,
cool.
it was fantastic.
And so that leaves Vincent. Do you have a timeline on that? Or you said that's the most expensive.
Yeah, so that is another. That's going to be. So this Everest one, I did it Asian trekking, or one of the cheapest ways you can do it, and that cost me $50,000. It was actually 45, I think. Yeah. So Vincent, now I've been looking around, and you have to go through. I don't think you can actually do it by yourself. I must just research it a bit more. But I want to do it now in December, January coming up, and just looking at the cheapest there is going to be around about around about $60,000. So it's not cheap either. Yeah. But it sounds like a big adventure. So I'm probably
plenty
going to
of building and tandems in your future.
No, I've got the money actually, luckily enough. So I've put the money away, so it's there. I must just now book it
nice.
with the right company.
Book it and make it happen. And
I'll probably go and do an Aconcagua trip, maybe guide one up in December. Then I'll be acclimatized, and then go down and do it. And
smart.
It's like a 10, 11 day trip, so it's not a long trip. But yeah, it's an exciting
Pierre,
trip.
Yeah, that's also like Alaska, a very neat part of the world.
It is. I know it's going to be beautiful down there.
We'll have to bring you back to the show for the postpartum on that one and see how it went, and we'll have to get you back to talk about that. But Pierre, thanks for sharing all these amazing stories, man.
I don't even know if the time is.
I've been smiling for an hour and a half.
But hopefully if I do that, then we would have done the 7 summits except for Denali. So that would be So
hopefully that gives me some motivation to keep lobbying over here to try to get this ridiculous rule removed. I don't know if that'll happen in our lifetimes, but the change is slow when it comes to government, but it'd be nice to get rid of that. But thanks for all the stories, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we were finally able to connect here. Thank you.
Yes, hopefully we see you soon. Hopefully I'll come and do Red Rocks sometime. But if you want to come over
I'd
to
love
South Africa,
to. That'd be great. We will take care of you in style, man. We have some. Yeah, we've got the American hospitality here to show you. So just let me know. We'll take care of you. That'd be a lot of fun. You'd love it.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool, bud.
Good. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Nice talking to you, bud. Cheers.
Cool.
Thanks.
Wow.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind-the-scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So, for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.